Hey everyone, so we've got heaps of data in our Tim Hortons data set. As you can see, it's a pretty large data set, so we got to organize it in a way that makes it possible for us to use efficiently. If you've got, for example, the address is somewhere over here under name, and as we can see, we have several cities in the province of Ontario, so we can't really make good use of it. The first step would probably go to data, and under data, we know that we got lots of places in Toronto, so let's use the field that we got here. We already got certainly a city, so let's go with data. Under data, convert text to column wizard, delimit it. Under delimit it, go under comma, and once you've selected comma, click on next. You'll see that it creates nice divisions for it. So that's exactly what we want. We want to divide data. Click finish, and there we go. We've got our first address in every single column, and you've got a column set up for each one of those dividers by comma. So again, data, and under data, text to columns, and we can do that very easily. So once we've got that, we can start thinking of doing it for all of the other the data lines that we got, so data fields. So let's first remove the extra columns that we've got here, but delete, awesome. And then based on that, we don't need the playground as well. So based on that, we can now start to, there are no playgrounds, so we can just delete that. And based on that, we can just simply start by doing the same thing for the other addresses. So let's do that. So the first one worked, awesome. That's what I wanted to find out. Let's call it, let's label it something. So let's label it address 1, address 2, city, country, postal code, province, and province shortcut. Okay, so let's do that with text to columns again, and let's do it for the other ones. I've selected all of the different fields. So next, use comma as definer. Finish, next, finish, done. Yeah, you can replace it, and we're all set. So we got all of our addresses. And the important thing that we got here is we have sort of a divider that gives me the city, right? So that's exactly what I wanted to go. Let's remove the rest of the data that we don't require. Again, latitude and longitude is important, but for now, we want to just get to Toronto, at least once it identifies the city of Toronto. Sometimes misclassifications happen, but at least we can reduce a little bit the amount of the data set that we got. So, awesome. Let's get into that. So once we got that, we have divided it, and we want to make a selection of the city of Toronto. Okay, so it looks better. The data set looks a bit better. So got all of this information there, true and false values. We'll play around with true and false values in a bit. But for now, what we are interested in is that we got our addresses, and we've got our cities, especially cities, because we want to have city of Toronto. We don't need the name anymore because we've got all of this very nicely organized. Our data set seems to make more sense. Drive-through is going to be important, but we don't need drive-through hours, I guess, for now. So as you can see with this data set, we could do some additional analysis if we really wanted to, but we don't need to do that right now. So we can, and here you got the opening hours, whether they're open, the curbside hours. So it's a lot of data information there that just makes the file unnecessarily heavy. Drive-through lane, that's interesting perhaps to keep, but the other ones I think we can take. So let's delete those. Done. And as you can see, our data set is becoming smaller, which is great. So ID, okay, let's change this to ID. ID, and let's see 1, 2, and now just copy paste this over there. So they've got the automatic identifiers for, so drag and drop, select 2 columns, and it automatically will assume numbers for the data set that we want. And that is basically it. So we now have our addresses, and we're going to save our data set just to make sure that we've got everything nice and smooth organized. We can delete that. I don't even know what the number there is. So mobile order, let's delete that as well. City, okay, so that's the interesting thing. We want to have the city of Toronto only. So we can pretty much go and do a filter. So let's do a filter for that. Another filter, go to city. And, there's so many cities there. So it's going to be a little bit of a ballpark here to find out. So let's just search for Toronto, city of Toronto, and let's close it. So now I've got only the city of Toronto. I'm still not sure if that's correctly represented, but let's hope it is. I select it, copy. And once I've copied it, let's open up a new Excel spreadsheet. And with the new spreadsheet, I'm just going to paste the values that I had before selected. So now I've got only my Toronto tagged data. Great, I'm going to close the other one. I don't need to save it because I've got already copy pasted over here. And based on that, I can now do several different things. Okay, so I can now start thinking that I want to convert perhaps the true and false values into something useful. So I'm going to use zeros and ones. Usually the CSV files would have 0 and 1s are recognized in QGIS as true and false. So that makes the usage of 0 and 1s easier. So how can I do this? I can go, let's just keep the files here, organize it so it becomes nicer. And actually I'm not going to use that one because I found that I've got a drive-through value right there under the true and false. So I'm just going to put this once on bold. And after doing that, let's check everything for its consistency. Looks nice. Okay, I don't need so much space in the ID. And interesting here, we've got different groups that belong to certain importance. So, for example, Saint's Hospitality, Ontario has several Tim Hortons in the city of Toronto. Well, that's interesting to note. That we got here, it's always best to change that. So we will find our place. And find our place, we will replace the false values with 0. Replace all. Great. And now we'll do the same thing with true. True values with 1. Replace all. Okay, so we've done all the replacement that we required. Once we've done that, we can sort of look at our data. We've got 0 and 1 values, which makes our life easier if we don't want to do counts later on. And let's just change a couple of names here. So, as some owners have the same. Some owners are franchise groups. So let's change names to that. And I think we can remove some of the additional data, such as parking type. Let's cut this out. And the other ones as well. Yeah, just go with delete. And once we've deleted that, we've got now ourselves a pretty clear and clean data set that we can use without any problems. Let's just see here how we can make sure that everything is correct. Now, latitude and longitude files are the most important, and that's the ones that we want to keep as we go further ahead and import this to QGIS, which shouldn't be too difficult to do. Let's save it, file, save as. And I'm going to save as at Tim Hortons TO. So we're going to start by opening up our QGIS. And once we've opened our QGIS, remember it takes sometimes to load. We're going to go to our data source manager. Under data source manager, we're going to choose the limited text and open up our Tim Hortons TO CSV that I've created. Confirm that I got longitude and latitude. Everything looks great. Add, close. And now we've got our Tim Hortons layer. Now with the Tim Hortons layer, the first thing that we want to do is to export it as a separate layer. So choose the 3 points there. Navigate to Tim Hortons. Call it Tim Hortons. Actually, let's create a new folder. Let's call it Data 4. Folder management is usually something important to take into consideration. Call it Tim Hortons. TO. Click OK, and you've saved the layer. Now, to avoid any confusions, let's just start a new project because we don't really know. And that's a limitation of our layers, we don't know what is the source. And we could actually get the source properties and figure it out that way, but I think it's easier in the beginning just to start a new project. And as you've saved already the layer, and it's under your data 4 folder, which I accidentally saved under my desktop when my data 3 folder. Anyways, data 4, just dragged it over to desktop. Here it is, got my shapefile in. And oops, there I did it again. It's gonna remove that layer. Okay, and now I am just going to get my Toronto data set into the project, because this is more than the city of Toronto itself, right? So I've got to do some selections with that. Let's just copy paste our data to data 4. So we've got it every nicely organized. We've got our data TO that we initially used. Here it is. And well, one of the limitations is that we are seeing the much more than Toronto City. We're seeing the Toronto greater area. So let's just use the selection tool and select the missing census tracts that, well, actually not the missing, but the census tracts that only pertain the selection of City Toronto. And well, that reminds us that you should hold shift, or yeah, both in the PC and the Mac, I think. So in the Mac, definitely shift, so you can select individually census tracts, and click shift twice to deselect. Another way of doing it would be by having a mask where you would just do a selection criteria. But as we don't have a mask really currently available, it's a good exercise to actually just do the selection like that. Okay. And make sure that you've got everything nicely selected. Use the hand tool to pan over to your selection and check out if there's anything in the boundaries that you didn't select. Well, everything's selected, so go to export, save features. Save features. Make sure that you've got encoding save only selected features. Super important and often neglected. So once you've selected it, call it City Toronto, CDTO. Save only selected features. Remember, that's super important. Save only selected features should be checked. Okay, done. So remove the layer data TO. And there you got it. You got your CDTO layer versus the city census tract boundaries, and you got your Tim Hortons downtown that we've created. Okay, let's change a little bit the colors and properties of it. But let's see first the attributes tables of the Tim Hortons layer. So if you look at there, we are interested in knowing the drive-thrus. So not all Tim Hortons have drive-thrus. If you remember from our beginning, we actually converted 0 to 1, 0 for false, 1 if there is a drive-thru. And I'm interested in finding the ones that have drive-thru. So I go to select features using an expression. And under features, I go to fields. Under fields, I choose the attribute that I want. In this case, has drive-thru. There it is. Equal sign 1. If I do equal sign 1, you can leave the space. It will recognize it. You do the selection for those that have drive-thrus. If I would do equal sign 0, I would do the selection of those that do not have drive-thrus. So equal sign 1, select features, and I can close it. Now I only have in my data set of Tim Hortons selected that have drive-thrus. Right click, export, save features as and choose, I'm going to call it THTO drive through, actually make it a bit shorter, DRIVTH. All right, should probably work. Make sure you're saving it in your new folder. I called it data 4, but it's completely up to you to organize. And most important of all, and oftentimes actually neglected because it doesn't show up, you got to drag it up and go to save only selected features. That is super important. Again, remember, only do the selection of save only selected features. And there you have it. So you got your drive-throughs Tim Hortons. Great. So let's remove that layer that we don't require right now. Well, we can keep it unchecked simply, but let's change our markers a little bit. Make it to 5. Okay, great. And City Toronto, I'll give a simple background, so I'm just going to use the beige. Okay. And with that, I can now go, let's change the color here a little bit to an orange, something like an orange. Make a starker contrast. Okay, great. And I don't want the boundaries around the points, so I go to simple marker, under simple marker, remove no pen. Okay, done. Okay, so now I've created my Tim Hortons drive-through locations, which I will be relating with pedestrians in the next video. Thanks for watching.